Companies like the one I work for are out of your league. At our middle school reunion with 50 classmates, John looked down on me. John has always treated me as a rival since we were kids, and it seems that hasn't changed even now that we're both over 50. Listening to his misguided comments makes me embarrassed for him. It looks like it's time to clear up some misunderstandings. So, which branch office is it? Ha! John, who had been mocking me, was suddenly stunned and started trembling when he realized who I was. My name is Alex Smith. I'm a 52-year-old professional. I've loved reading books since I was young, especially biographies of great people from around the world. I want to contribute to society. Somehow, that became my mindset, and I always tried to act on my own initiative before being told what to do. Maybe because of that, by the time I was in middle school, I was often relied upon as a representative, becoming the captain of clubs and being recommended for class president. However, I always made sure not to act selfishly or boss people around. Inspired by historical figures, I worked with others to move in agreeable directions. This approach was well received, and I had an enjoyable middle school life. I continued to live happily through high school, college, and into my career, but looking back now, middle school was the most fulfilling and enjoyable period of my life. It was just last month that I received a postcard inviting me to a reunion of my middle school classmates. At our age, many have moved away from our hometown. I couldn't even remember the last time I saw my middle school friends. Excited to see my old classmates, I promptly checked yes on my RSVP and mailed it back. On the day of the reunion, I headed to the venue, unable to contain my excitement. The reunion was held at an upscale hotel, and I could already see a few people gathered at the entrance. Hey, is that you, Alex? Long time no see. As soon as I arrived, classmates started greeting me. I thought I had arrived early, but it seemed most people were already there. Everyone must have been as excited as I was. Unlike our teenage selves, we're all now adults in our 50s. While everyone had aged, there were still traces of our childhood selves, and I couldn't help but smile with nostalgia. As I chatted with a nearby classmate about our current lives, a loud, crude laugh interrupted us. I turned to see a man in flashy attire. He wore a suit made of expensive-looking fabric and flaunted a shiny watch from his cuff, confidently surveying the room with his arms crossed. It took me a moment to recognize him, but his arrogant demeanor gave him away. Arriving late was John. He was my classmate who always picked fights with me. John seemed to dislike me for some reason, maybe because we were both smart. Unlike me, who had many friends, John had a harsh personality and attacked anyone he didn't like. That's why classmates tended to keep their distance from him. Just a moment ago, we were having a pleasant conversation, but now we exchanged uneasy glances. A few classmates even got up to avoid John. But John, seeing me, approached with a smirk. Long time no see, Alex. You're looking pretty shabby. John, I didn't recognize you at first. You're wearing a sharp suit. It suits you well. John seemed pleased by my genuine compliment. He crossed his arms again, looking me up and down with a condescending gaze. You haven't changed much since middle school. You're at an age where you should pay more attention to your appearance. He continued to look down on me, adding, given your cheap clothes, you must have led a life with little success. You probably haven't had many meals in nice hotels like this. Eat up while you can. He didn't seem to notice the irritated looks he was getting from everyone around him. John kept rambling spitefully, ignoring the discomfort he was causing. I could only smile wryly, finding it childish to retort. Eventually, John shifted the conversation to jobs. So, what do you all do for work? Judging by your shabby appearances, it can't be much. Without waiting for answers, John started making assumptions about each classmate he pointed to. You used to read car magazines all the time, so you must work at an auto repair shop. And your family had a farm, right? I bet you couldn't get a job and ended up working there. One by one, he pointed and made presumptuous judgments. Naturally, the atmosphere grew tense, and no one responded to him. Whether he was oblivious to the critical atmosphere or choosing to ignore it, John just laughed loudly. I bet most of you are busy growing vegetables or taking care of animals. I'm not like you. With my brains and intelligence, I work at a solid company. Even though no one had asked, John proudly pulled out his business card. The card, handed over with an assertive gesture, bore the name of a large local company, Capital Corporation, along with the title of Senior Manager. This company is involved in a wide range of activities, from developing precision equipment for industries and research institutions to manufacturing and sales. Seeing the unexpected company name, I was momentarily stunned. John, noticing my reaction, grinned even wider. He placed his hands on my shoulders, unable to hide his glee. Surprised? This is reality. After studying hard and graduating from Harvard, I became a manager at Capital Corporation. Where did you end up? How much did you study after middle school? No matter what university you graduated from or what job you have, there's no hierarchy among people. Different jobs support each other, making society work. My tone grew harsh. It wasn't just that he insulted me, his disdain for our classmates and his scorn for farming and livestock industries was intolerable. I must have surprised him with my harsh tone. John stared at me, his expression quickly turning sour. Oomph. If you're that defensive, you must be doing manual labor. You were always pampered, but it seems you didn't work hard after middle school. He turned his face away as if he'd seen something unpleasant, shaking his head theatrically. Talking to someone on a different intellectual level is exhausting. I usually talk with my Harvard peers, and the conversations are completely different. Goodbye. Enjoy wallowing with your peers at the bottom. With that, John moved to a table where some women were chatting. It was unfortunate that the atmosphere had soured on our reunion. I apologized to my classmates, but their criticism was focused on John. Man, he was always a jerk, but he's even worse now as an adult. Indeed, John had always boasted and ignored the atmosphere. Back then, I thought it was childish pride, but it seems it was part of his character. If he hasn't changed by this age, he's unlikely to change in the future. Sighing, I watched John force his way into the women's group. After John left, I decided to enjoy the conversation with my classmates. Eventually, the late arrivals trickled in, and with almost all 50 of us present, the reunion formally began. As the former class president, I led the toast, and we started our meal. At first, the long years apart made conversations awkward, but once the drinks flowed, the atmosphere lightened, and everyone started having fun. In middle school, it was impossible to talk to girls alone without feeling embarrassed. But now, as adults, we communicated smoothly and respectfully. I enjoyed talking to several classmates about what we used to think back then and memorable episodes. We shared thoughts and feelings we had kept to ourselves, such as what we secretly thought or how we wished we had talked more. Revealing these feelings after 37 years was incredibly enjoyable. Just then, a buzz came from the entrance. I turned to see the last classmate arriving, and a few people rushed over to greet her. Emily. It is you, Emily. Oh my, how nostalgic. Emily, who had always been kind and cheerful to everyone, was the class darling and very popular back in middle school. With her gentle demeanor and pure beauty, everyone admired her. Boys and girls alike adored her, so the group surrounding her now was evenly split between men and women. After a while, Emily came over to the table where I was sitting. Thanks for being here today. Same to you. It's great to see everyone again. Emily's modest attire highlighted her natural charm even more. She looked remarkably youthful for someone in her 50s, with a calm demeanor that made her even more captivating. Back in middle school, I too had admired her, and she was actually my first love. Seeing her at the reunion stirred up nostalgic feelings. I got held up at work and ended up being a bit late. That's all right. We've just started, so stay and enjoy yourself. As we exchanged light conversation, I noticed her beautiful hand. On her left ring finger, there was no ring. Surprised, I felt my heart race, unsure of how to broach the topic. Emily followed my gaze and then widened her eyes in realization. Oh, this is... Just then, a familiar voice interrupted from behind. There you are, Emily. Talking to Alex is a waste of time. It was John, grinning as he inserted himself between us. Emily looked confused, but John continued talking to her, ignoring her discomfort. You've talked enough with Alex. Now come over to my table and chat with me. I sighed, annoyed that John had returned. Twisting his body to block Emily's view, John scowled at me, signaling me to leave. Talking with Emily is enjoyable, but it's true that we've spent more than enough time together here. Besides, Emily probably wants to catch up with our other classmates too. With that in mind, I glanced at Emily. She looked troubled, her brows furrowed, as she glanced between John and the table where he had beckoned her, comparing him with the other classmates seated there. As I pondered what to do, John elbowed me. "Eat up while you can, Alex. You must be living a poor life, always eating bad food." With that, John had a staff member bring a chair and forcibly sat between Emily and me. I'd been in management for years. Smart people like me rise quickly. It's different from those working in farming or construction. John boasted about his capabilities. Emily, not wanting to disrupt the atmosphere, politely nodded, though she didn't seem particularly interested. Still, John kept talking, oblivious to her lack of interest. I grew tired of his constant boasting and childish way of communicating, and found myself wondering when to step in and help her. Noticing the awkwardness at our table, a few classmates gathered from other tables. But John, ignoring them, continued addressing Emily exclusively. "By the way, I haven't mentioned the company I work for. You must know it, it's a major firm." Pausing for a moment, John theatrically cleared his throat. Then, casting a proud glance my way, he announced the company name with a confident tone. "The nationwide company, Capital Corporation." After middle school, I went to a top high school, graduated from Harvard, and became a manager at this big company. Hearing such an impressive background, a few classmates listening sighed in surprise. Feeling thoroughly pleased with himself, John began to boast even more. He went on about how he led a top-tier lifestyle and was an exceptional person worthy of his high-ranking position at a large company. In contrast, he exaggerated how the classmates gathered today had fallen into less successful lives, making the atmosphere increasingly uncomfortable. But just as his voice grew louder and the tension reached a breaking point, John suddenly stopped. Turning to me, he flashed a provocative smile. Well, isn't it surprising how far I've come since our school days? A big company like mine is out of your league." With all 50 classmates listening, I felt a wave of nostalgia rather than anger. In middle school, John always tried to compete with me in everything, from math quizzes to 55-yard sprints. I was never interested in winning or losing, viewing school grades merely as indicators of my learning progress. I never rose to John's provocations, but my classmates often defended me. Even now, just as in the past, the classmates around John looked annoyed and frustrated. There he goes again, acting superior. Alex didn't do anything to deserve this. Some classmates openly confronted John, while others whispered among themselves. He was bragging about his job to me too. Why is he monopolizing Emily? Faced with the collective grumbling, John seemed genuinely angered. But it was just like him to direct his anger towards me. People's worth is measured by their salary. You might have been popular in middle school, but things change as adults. Listening to John's misguided comments was almost embarrassing. It seemed time to clear up the misunderstandings. I gestured for John to stop and spoke, holding back laughter. "So, which branch office do you work at?" "Huh?" Clearly, he hadn't expected that. John stared back at me blankly, his mouth slightly open. The other classmates, with whom I had been catching up before John arrived, seemed to understand the situation and began to chuckle quietly. John, however, seemed confused by their reaction. After a moment, he turned red with anger. "Which branch doesn't matter. What's important is the company. You'll never set foot in a big company like mine." His declaration elicited louder laughter from the classmates. They couldn't hold back anymore, finding his obliviousness amusing. "What's so funny? Are you jealous of my job? Or do you think the main office is superior to a branch office? Let's stop this, please." While everyone else laughed, Emily spoke soothingly, trying to calm the situation. It was meant to keep things from getting more chaotic, but it seemed John misunderstood again. "Only Emily understands me. Thank you for defending me. They are ridiculous for laughing at my competence." He gazed at Emily with gratitude, but she wasn't speaking to him. Emily had called out to me, who was sitting next to John. Hey, Alex. Isn't it time you told him the truth? You're right, Emily. John's eyes darted around, clearly confused by our conversation. Seeing that he wasn't catching on, I began explaining patiently. I don't think the headquarters is more important. I always appreciate the hard work of branch employees. Work is about mutual support. Don't talk like you're some company representative. Don't be so condescending. John spat his words angrily, causing more laughter. I appreciate the effort of branch employees. But someone with your mindset as a manager is a problem. I need to inform the branch about this. What? What do you mean? Inform the branch? What are you talking about? Even now, he failed to understand. Seeing him so flustered, I felt a bit sorry but also amused. Having someone with your attitude is damaging to the company's image. You could cause the company losses. Image? You're mocking me. How can someone like you criticize my company? Determined not to lose, he glared at me and retorted. The classmates around us watched with amusement, some even egging John on with calls of "Go on, John. Keep it up." But I noticed Emily looking at John with pity, which made me feel sorry for him too. I hadn't expected the reunion to be this lively, but it was time to reveal the truth. Listen, John, I'm the CEO of the company you work for. What? What kind of nonsense are you talking about? It's a massive company with branches nationwide. Stop dreaming and wake up. Even though I had explained it clearly, he couldn't comprehend it. Just as I was about to give up, thinking that no amount of explanation would help, Emily started speaking to him. She took out her phone, pulled up something on the screen, and showed it to him. Look at the company's website. See? If you're so proud of your company, you should recognize the CEO's face and name. Her phone clearly displayed my photo and the name Alex Smith. John finally realized I was telling the truth. His face turned pale, and he started trembling all over. No way. I had no idea. Recalling the awful things he'd said to me, he suddenly began to grovel, laughing nervously and addressing me in a fawning tone. I might have gone a bit too far, but you'll forgive me, right? We were good friends, after all. It's not about forgiveness. It's about the attitude of looking down on others. Changing your behavior just because I'm the CEO is precisely the problem. Even after that explanation, he continued to smirk and repeated a half-hearted sorry. He didn't seem to understand at all, and I sighed deeply. I'll report what I saw and heard today to the branch. If you've been working diligently, there shouldn't be any issues. I always work hard. You don't need to worry, Mr. Smith. John straightened up and addressed me formally. His blatant change in demeanor made it clear he hadn't understood the point. It's problematic to judge people by their jobs or switch to formal language just because someone is a CEO. Since he couldn't grasp this, I had nothing more to say to him. Not wanting to let the awkward atmosphere linger and disturb others, I stood up. Emily started to follow me, but John suddenly shouted. Are you trying to impress Emily by flaunting your CEO status? I paused, puzzled by his accusation. But then John turned his head and started speaking to Emily. Emily, approaching Alex just because he's a CEO is wrong. It's not about status or money, it's about what's inside. The same John who had boasted about his title and income now contradicted himself. Everyone present was baffled by what had gotten into this man, but Emily, who was addressed directly, responded seriously. I'm not talking to Alex because he's a CEO. We're at a reunion, and I want to chat with all my classmates. Classmates around us voiced their agreement with her. However, John shook his head vigorously, as if to dismiss the voices around him, and glared fiercely at her hand. Then, noticing her bare left ring finger, he grinned smugly. Then you'll talk to me too, right? Emily, you're not married, are you? If status and income don't matter, date me. Though John was single, his approach to her was inappropriate. As I was gauging the right moment to step in, Emily, to my surprise, firmly rejected his words. I could never date someone like you. Someone who judges people by their job or income isn't someone I could be happy with. Her clear refusal almost made me laugh. But even after being firmly told no, he still wouldn't back down. If you really don't judge people by their job or income, you should be fine with me. If you choose Alex, it means you care about status and money. I have a clear reason. In case you've misunderstood, Alex is my husband. John's mouth fell open, and he froze. But you're not wearing a wedding ring. I've been helping my husband with his work since we were young, often working in the factory. Keeping my ring at home became a habit. When she looked at me and said this, I nodded in agreement, saying, "That's right. But I thought you might wear the ring today, so I was surprised too. It's our special ring, so I keep it safe at home." She blushed as she answered. In moments like these, I can't help but think she's adorable, no matter how much time passes or how old we get. We exchanged smiles, but John, still in denial, spoke up again. "You're lying. You two are just messing with me." "We're not lying. She is precious to me and always will be." To prove my words, she took my hand with a happy expression. Seeing this, John let out a frustrated groan. "But I'm not a loser. I could make you happy too." "John, you mentioned that you bought everything on loans, even your car and clothes. And not just any loans, but revolving credit. I don't think I could be happy with someone who uses revolving credit for big purchases." Emily said this apologetically but firmly. "What's wrong with revolving credit? I pay it off regularly, so there's no problem. Besides, you can buy anything you want and the monthly payments stay the same. It's a good deal." "No, it's not. It means your total debt never decreases, and you keep paying interest. The amount you repay each month might be fixed, but you end up paying more in the long run." John was focused on the immediate payments, not realizing the long-term implications. Revolving credit often has high interest rates and extended repayment periods. John seemed unaware of how much he was paying in fees or when he would be debt-free. "We have different views on money, John. You should find someone who shares your values." Rejected by her, John looked down in sorrow. Feeling sorry for him, I spoke up. "And Emily is already happy with me. Find someone else who doesn't have a partner. I'm sure you'll meet someone great." I meant to encourage him, but John seemed to take it the wrong way. He glared at me with resentment, tears welling up in his eyes. Then, he shouted, "Not only did you take my job, but now my Madonna too. Get lost," and fled the scene. With that, Emily, our classmates, and I were finally able to resume a calm reunion. We all spent an enjoyable evening together. A few days after the reunion, I contacted the branch where John worked, using the business card he had given me. As expected, it was revealed that he was treating his subordinates with a high-handed attitude daily. I immediately contacted HR to investigate the interpersonal relationships and work environment in his department. The investigation revealed that not only was John creating a negative atmosphere in the workplace, but he was also behaving arrogantly towards clients. While he was extremely polite to major corporate clients, he treated smaller or first-time clients with an overbearing attitude. The more we investigated, the more troubling reports we received. Despite feeling sad about it, I instructed HR to reassign John. I hoped he would return to his roots and rediscover a sincere work ethic. But the result was disappointing. He couldn't forget his former glory as a manager, clashing with his younger supervisor and remaining rude to clients. He eventually isolated himself and resigned a few months later. After leaving his job, he fell behind on loan payments, leading to the repossession of his house and car. He then disappeared, and no one knows what happened to him. As for me, I continued to lead a busy life with work and family. Thanks to the reunion, I reconnected with old friends. We're planning a big reunion when we all turn 60. When the day arrives, I plan to attend with my beloved wife, Emily. Until then, I continue to work hard, looking forward to the day we all meet again.